What is good and what is up, y'all? It's your boy here, Jay, back and better than ever with another episode of Thunder Banter. It's been a couple weeks, y'all, but the Thunder are back on the struggle bus after a 7-1 stretch over 8 games. They lose back-to-back games to end their 10-game stretch, have some tough games against the Pelicans, the Timberwolves, and to round out the week, the Nuggets, who have been hot. So all right here on Thunder Banter. What's up, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Thunder Banter. Man, it's been a minute, y'all, but I'm glad to be back talking about my team. The Thunder went on a 7-1 stretch over 8 games and then went ahead and lost the last 2 games of that 10-game stretch. You know, that sucks. Losing to teams that you typically don't think that the Thunder would lose to. The Pacers and the Raptors both been playing, the Pacers haven't been playing good basketball. Raptors been playing a little bit more inspiring basketball, but the Pacers obviously had some, personal vendetta from last year in the NBA Finals. They obviously don't have, Tyrese Halliburton this year, have been struggling for the most part this year, but went ahead and lost that. But with all that being said, it kind of makes sense. The lack of offensive production that has been going on with the Oklahoma City Thunder since the absence of Jalen Williams. It's just been absolutely glaring. Dub has been obviously, out in and out of the lineup and now out again. So now that Caruso has been day to day, there's just been a ton of, you know, mix going on and inconsistency with this lineup and injuries going on. So, man, we're gonna get back into it. Was sick a couple weeks, but now let's get back into it, talking about my teams and everything that's been going on in the sports world. But since we have last chatted, the Thunder went ahead and lost back-to-back games for the first time this season, but they managed to bounce back, going 7-1 in 8 games as they take down the Jazz, Grizzlies, Heat, Spurs, Rockets, and Cavs, and took 1 L to the Heat by 2 points in Miami, but ended the week or that 10-game stretch rather, on a sour note, dropping another back-to-back games to end last week. Now sitting at 36-10, the Thunder are still at the top of the West by 5.5 games over the Spurs, but last 2 games have been all but great and mainly has to do with the absence of J-Dub and the lack of production on the offensive side of the ball while giving up a ton of threes. So let's get into it with these past 2 losses. Let's get into the most recent. No, actually, let's start with the Pacers losses. The Pacers would win 117-114, starting with the Friday in Indiana. Or versus Indiana, rather, a rematch of the NBA Finals minus Halliburton because of the Pacers have had a rough year until they ran into the Thunder, where regardless of Shea having 47, 4, and 4, the rest of the Thunder, including the bench, only had 3 other players in double figures and only Chet over 20 points. Indiana would have 3 of their starters have 20-plus points and 5 players in double figures, with Nembhard leading the way with 27, 7, and 11 as the Pacers would shoot 47% from the field and 16 from 38 from three-point land. Nembhard would have 4 threes as the Pacers shared the ball very well as well. 34 assists to OKC's 18 assists. Now, I understand, that doesn't really matter that much, but they were sharing the ball at a high clip and obviously getting buckets off of those passes, which I don't even see, I don't even need to see on the stat sheet. I can see on the screen the lack of offensive production since the absence of Dub is a glaring, and I believe we lean on Shea a lot, and as we should, but others need to create as well, besides maybe Aaron Wiggins off the bench. Now, I know we are hurt with Caruso as well, but it's just the glaring holes in the shot-making ability in this roster when it's not fully healthy. We always lean on Shea, and if it's not a Shea night, it's an off night. One player out, and it feels like we are down 5 guys. Not sure why that feels, but there needs to be possibly an addition of a shot maker on this team and a ball handler to limit the load of Shea. I understand Shea is the one that creates this offense, but at times we need to take the ball out of Shea's hand to be able to have a shot creator, and that's what Dub is. I get that, but I think we need one more, right? Not Aaron Wiggins. Not anybody else. I believe in Chet as well to eventually create an offensive game. But right now, it's just glaring, right? Because of the You don't even have to look at the stat sheet. You look at these games, and it's obvious the lack of offensive production that Oklahoma City Thunder has. But at the end of the day, we're one of the most efficient teams and one of the best offensive teams in the league. But because of Shea, because of what he does and his ability to create and everything that not missing shots, his mid game, his ability to get to the hole, his free throw percentages, that's what makes us one of the best offenses. But when he is not going, is my point, it is glaring that we are not good with the offensive side of the ball. And that's something that we need to fix. I'm not sure if Presti's going to kind of try and go out and get something, but he needs to. Our defense is great, but even trading someone like someone like Dort, who I know we don't want, to trade, but his inability to create, and so far this season, is showing glaring signs of not being his ability to create. With his 3-point, not being there as much as it was last year. He was torching it last season, but he is relying heavily on his shot making ability when he has never been a great shot maker to begin with. Now, if it's not his defense, he's a liability. So I believe that can be an option that you would want to trade to get a piece to be able to get a shot maker. I understand that you don't want to trade Dort. I understand he's a great defensive, a great defensive guy. But at the end of the day, when we need a shot creator and when we need someone to be able to get a shot, 9 times out of 10, he's not going to be able to get a bucket unless he's standing in the corner or shooting a three. He's not great off the dribble, and he can't create much. And when his shot isn't going, it's just not there. It's just not there. But lastly, we were out rebounded 51-41, and they had 14 offensive rebounds, guys. That is another thing that this Oklahoma City Thunder team, not only do we let up the 3-point ball a ton, but we give up way too many offensive rebounds, and that is a main problem as well. We're getting out rebounded every single night, and I understand injuries have played a role into that, but it's glaring. It's extremely glaring. Now let's move on to the Raptors game, where the Raptors will win 103-101 in a late thriller Sunday game that ended on a sour note after it seemed OKC was going to pull it out, but the Raptors stuck around and quickly Barrett and Barnes all made late shots to secure the win in OKC. Shea had 24, 3, and 6, only taking 11 shots. Dort would then help the load on Sunday, shooting 50% from three-point land, 4 from 8 after a night going 0 for 5 against the Pacers. You see what I'm saying? If it's not 4 for 8, it's 0 for 5. So he needs to fix that. He would end with 19, 8, and 2 as Chet would then have 11 and 10. But overall, OKC shot 11 for 43 from three-point land and 26% from three-point land, 44% from the field, having Dort as the only starter with a positive plus or minus. The Raptors would have 10 steals versus the Oklahoma City Raptors. Shot technically worse than the Thunder, but did have a couple more threes. But 12 offensive rebounds. Again, out-rebounded 51-37. After 2 games, getting out-rebounded 102-78 in offensive out-rebounded 26-9. Just atrocious. So we've been out-rebounded 102-78 in 2 games and 26-9 on offensive rebounds. I know that it's not going to matter right now, but it will play a role when it comes playoff time. This will come back to bite us in the ass somehow, some way, if we don't get this fixed soon. Shea continues to have fantastic games, uplifting the Thunder, and continue to add to his MVP case in the back-to-back season, hoping to get Caruso back soon and Dub to continue to get healthy. But also great news from the G League team and former first-round pick Nikola Topic having, beat testicular cancer, and now is back on the court rather than, being, in the hospital trying to get back healthy. After being diagnosed in late 2025, the Thunder made sure to make his health a priority and let him get healthy, which he is on the right path to and has been practicing back in the facility. Awesome to see Nikola Topic, one of our first rounders back. And, I continue to, root for him and his health and hopefully get back up to, not only the G League, but our team. our team. So now on a more positive note, Shea has 31 30-point games. We'll make that 32 after the Pacers game this season. Just absolutely ridiculous stat. I understand that, a lot of negatives going on with trying to fix things with the offensive rebounding and obviously the lack of production on the offensive side of the ball when it isn't Shea. But Shea has had 32 30-point games this season. Absolutely ridiculous stat, continuing to show his dominance. But also the lack of help on the offensive end is sometimes questionable, like I have lamented to. If he isn't scoring 30 points a night, it is sometimes a hit or miss night for the offense. His presence alone matters so much, and I think Jay Mitchell has been a great addition to this rotation, but he's been in and out of the lineup with Shea to get more off ball. But like I said, we need another ball handler. We need another shot maker. Right now, we have the best offensive rating in the league, but we are the worst offensive rebounding team in the league, guys. Again, I'm lamented towards it. It's not a big deal right now, but in the playoffs, it will matter a ton more and will show a lot more on the scoreboard. Also, again, having the best defensive rating, but again, a lot of the load falls on Shea's shoulders in the offensive production. Best defensive rating, but also giving up the most three balls. There's things we got to fix. Like I said, we also have one of the worst rebounding percentages in the league, not just offensive rebounding in general. So it's definitely something that needs to be worked and fixed on an addition of a big man or two. We will see what Presti has in store before the deadline, but the All-Star game is coming up. The other big issues, like I have lamented to, is allowing the three ball guys at a high clip. When these teams beat us, they are lighting us up from three, and we are content with giving up simply because we bury ourselves into the paint to protect the points in the paint, but also get closer to the rim because we have limited rebounding and limited shot blockers. Since that is the case, I believe we are giving up these threes to be able to get on the board more with Chet and Hart to get these rebounds and push up the pace, being in and out of the. And I understand Chet and Hart have been in and out of the lineup, and that's part of it. But I think that that's the reason why is, we need to push the pace. We need to continue to push the pace. And that's the only way that we can continue to do that is if we continue to crash the paint. We don't have great rebounding, so we need to stay in there and just shoot threes. And if they miss it, they miss it. We're going to just, we're going to run the floor. But it's going to be interesting to see, the moves that will be made, possibly for a big man, possibly for a ball handler, a shot creator at the trade deadline, because I know Presti is not content. I think overall there is much to be worried about outside of trying to get better, as everyone is. I know it may seem nice now, but in the 7-game series, we need our bench to look alive. In other part of the trio, Chet, Dub, to be healthy, in our bench to be extremely healthy as well. Need them all to be healthy. We need them all to be ready because, like I said, it feels like when one guy is out, it's 5 guys out. But it's a new week, y'all. On to this week. We got some tough challenges with some tough teams. No Dub facing the Pelicans to start. Timberwolves on Thursday and the Nuggets on Sunday. So it will definitely be interesting. But tune in tonight. We facing the Pelicans tonight. All in all, it's looking up from here. We need to stay locked in these last games before the All-Star break. Keep our heads on a swivel and focus more than anything. Focus on the games coming up next week as well, as we face the Spurs for the last time next week, which is the last time that we will see them before the playoffs. They're the number 2 seed, so I'm banking on the fact that they're going to be there, not just in the play-in, but in the playoffs, as they will be the number 2 seed. They will be the number 2 seed. Need to stay healthy and keep pushing forward. The Thunder train will continue down the railroad, but we will need to stay healthy, guys. That's the big thing. Health is wealth. Health is wealth. But that is a wrap of this episode of Thunder Banter. I'm glad to be back. Sick a couple weeks, but we're back talking about Thunder, and it's going to be more frequent. I promise. We out.